Ethan, what do you mean when you say winter? What do you mean? There are so many ways to take. What do you mean? Huh? What do you mean?
I suffer from SAD, seasonal affective disorder. Every winter, I go through a depressive phase where all my motivation is just gone. And it's usually the time where the only thing I want to do is hyperfix on a very specific game and only play that for months on end. When I say winter indie albums, I think of albums that feel cold. Albums where the imagery conveys a snowy landscape. Albums where depression is the forefront of the subject matter. And albums that literally give you shivers. Let's start with a simple concept: sadness. But specifically, Sonder. This was an obscure sorrow years ago, but since then that idea has influenced the minds of many. The definition of Sonder is realizing that other people have as vivid a life as you do. The album Sonder by Biv and Black starts with a bottle to erase the memories of another person and the downward spiral that ensues from that. It's a breakup album that is soaked in despair until about halfway through, where they find someone new to replace the previous person. But even with that new person, paranoia still creeps in from past trauma. The concept of Sonder is prevalent throughout this whole time due to the fact that past relationships still have their own lives, whether or not they exist with you. The production of this album is moody, ambient, echoey, and a great late night listen. Regarding snowy landscapes, the album And They Mine for Our Bodies by Gao the Arsonist comes to mind. The album cover is a variation of a Francisco Goya painting, most commonly known as Saturn devouring his sun. With this being most people's first impression of the album, it already sets the tone that this is going to be a dark and cold atmosphere. The lyrics play into this painting with ideas of forsaken gods, abandoned cities due to death, the emptiness of bones in the absence of human life. It portrays this concept of a wasteland ravaged by a god, humans rising up against tyranny, and is also connected to a webcomic. Throughout my discography, I've constructed a complex world full of strange characters and cryptic lore. Apparently, music wasn't enough. Welcome to Sludge Bath, which is the name of the webcomic. Lyrically, this is a very dense album. So if you like dissecting lyrics, this will be a fun one. But production-wise, it gives me desolate, snowy vibes and just feels very cold. Even if you look at the promotional material, it literally looks like a character walking through snow.
In that context, albums that actually literally are snow, mountain. One album that stands out to me would be From Me to You by Quedeca. Before this record came out, Quedeca was just known as another rapper trying to make a name for himself on the internet. Literally had an album called Bad Internet Rapper. But with From Me to You, Ben made it a lot more clear that he was capable of so much more. The album is a thoughtful exploration of overcoming personal struggles, navigating through those valleys of doubt, setback, mom sent you to your room, oh no. And ultimately, it's pushing towards like a peak of overcoming adversity, the things that you had going on in your life. Mom says it's your turn on the Xbox. It's like getting over those humps. It's a light concept, focusing on, the resilience required to get past these things, his adversity, his keep trying. Quedeca himself had to keep trying to get through that stigma of an internet rapper and actually elevate his content to something that's almost unrecognizable now. He has a journey in the album of climbing a mountain, and it's symbolic as the listeners carry through it as well. Through the trials and triumphs of trying to reach that summit. Among the standout tracks, I think Sisyphus and Candles on Fire are my favorite. They particularly resonate with me. They capture the essence of the album's message of perseverance and self-discovery, especially Sisyphus, beautifully.
When the passion dies and suicide feels like the only option is an album by Cxrpse. Not Corpse Husband, but Corpse with an X. And is the epitome of if depression was an album. This album literally committed suicide due to it getting removed from streaming services for reasons that no one really knows. Honestly, personally for me, I saw it more so as a statement, and I was honestly saddened when it got removed from platforms due to the fact that it is one of the best depression albums I've ever listened to. Due to popular demand, most likely. It then returned a year later and is now currently available. Cxrpse's voice perfectly portrays a person who is going through the tides of depression in terms of tone and subject matter. He even touches on his childhood abuse, which is the heaviest listen on the entire album. When it comes to production, it's the perfect accompaniment to a day that has a very gray sky, especially if you like rap, drums, and slower songs. This was Cxrpse's last album, and it's his best one, by far.
But if you want to talk about atmosphere, when I think of winter, I think of like the calm and just dead atmosphere after it snows, or just the morning after a blizzard. The air around you feels like it's aware of your presence, and yet at the same time it's just indifferent to it. So if I had to really pick an album I think encapsulates winter, Ágætis byrjun by Cxrpse. Hopefully I pronounced that right. It's in Icelandic. It's an album from 1999 that I think sonically fits that theme of winter even more than From Me to You, especially independent albums. That was a hard limiter on the challenge, Ethan. But this album creates such a lush atmosphere that overcomes even lyrics. Because most of this album is in Icelandic. You would really think that would take away from your experience, not being able to understand what they're saying. But literally some of this album is made in a made-up language called Hopelantic. They don't actually want you to understand what they're saying. That's not the point of this album. Even without that understanding of language, the songs I think do a great job of speaking for themselves and telling you what they really mean just sonically. His vocals on this really work more as an instrument rather than a way to convey any sort of message. This is a post-rock album, which that usually defines itself with, really harsh and in-your-face elements. But this album is the complete opposite of that. It's on the opposite end of the post-rock spectrum. This album is very subtle. The progressions and instrumentation of normal post-rock is here, but things are so slow and drawn out, and it makes you feel like you're in a snowstorm. Get you a nice blanket, pause your hawk to a podcast, put on a pair of headphones, and I just want you to sink into this album. Give it your full, undivided attention. While this whole thing is a masterpiece, the intro song into the second song, Ingar, I think it's pronounced, it's just on another level. That song is amazing. It makes you feel like it's like a mother like holding you and like singing you a song on a cold day. Maybe you're sick from school or something. Like it's, the atmosphere is just palpable here. This really do be a gem of the internet.
Each one of these albums that I've mentioned, I've actually listened to in cold weather. And any of these albums would be the perfect companion for a wintry day. But there's one album that I haven't mentioned yet. It's one that I've known about for years, that not only has one of my favorite songs of all time and has all the aspects that I mentioned earlier, especially being the one that gave me shivers. Skeletons by Crywolf. This album came out in 2017, and even 7 years later, it still holds up exceptionally well. This album is best experienced with cold wind blowing in your face, depression, longing, hopefulness, isolation, separation, all accompanied by simple elements like piano, a cappella, and guitar, then elevated by epic, emotional synths. It's one of those works of art that must be fully experienced without distraction to fully appreciate it. Years ago, I felt very passionate about Windswept by Crywolf, which was my first experience of this artist. And these words still ring true.
Windswept by Crywolf is more than just a song. It's an audio experience. Whenever I'm in an emotional state, I tend to run to the song for some sort of comfort to help ease the pain, when really it just makes me cry even harder. Even when I'm not crying my eyes out because I've had an extremely rough week, it's actually quite a motivational song in a weird way. I don't know many songs that both feel my sadness and motivate me when I'm happy, but this one does. This specific song is very atmospheric, especially if you're wearing earbuds, which in my opinion, that's the best way to listen to this masterpiece. If you're a thinker, it can help bring you to a different place in your mind by sailing you on a sea of aspirations, motivations, and arbitrary notions. And if you're not a thinker, well, listen to it anyway, because it's a good song. Pacing is extremely present in the song as well. It tends to fluctuate between high points and low points in the song, but does so in a very smooth way, making the high points that much greater when the low points settle. Windswept takes instruments like piano, guitar, and synth, and blends them together to create this epic, breathtaking sound that's absolutely amazing. The song first starts out with a collection of perfectly synced voices setting the tone for what's to come. Next, all but one voice leaves except for the occasional added voice that appears on the last parts of the verse, and a strumming of an acoustic guitar is now present. A clapping sound then appears, starting the song's crescendo. Then, all of a sudden, the synth kicks in, followed by some electric guitar, which really gives this song the musical punch it deserves. So, what's this song about? Well, since I've been too busy admiring the breathtaking sound of it, I didn't figure it out till recently. It's a song about a relationship. A song about sorrow. A song about betrayal. A song about longing. A song about a constant thought in your brain that won't go away. This song is a representation of all of the thoughts that one has after a breakup. This is honestly one of my favorite songs ever due to its atmospheric tendencies, smooth pacing and transitions, the sound of the song, the multiple amazingly well-structured crescendos, and deep lyrics. This song has been really connecting with me recently due to the fact that I've just experienced probably one of the worst weeks of my life. I've wanted to talk about this song for the longest of times, but haven't found the right opportunity. Well, this is that opportunity. Please, check out Windswept by Crywolf. No amount of explaining can make you truly comprehend this song unless you listen to it for yourself.
I don't say this lightly. This is the most beautiful album that I've ever listened to.